All right, guys, thank you for being here with L3. And I know you just finished your wins, and congratulations on those. And just a reminder, always celebrate your wins, even if they're small, because partly you're getting your brain accustomed to getting that, dopamine dose of encouragement and excitement that, man, I won something. That'll actually help your mood. It'll help you stay encouraged and then make better decisions going forward. So always try to celebrate, even if they're small wins. Just take a moment and say, man, I just did that. And just keep on focusing on those things, and you'll watch it begins to change your heart. And the Bible talks about being transformed by the renewing of our mind, and that will begin to take place. So tonight's topic is victim, victor, or something more. Victim, victor, or something more. And we're going to talk about moving from a victim mindset to a victory mindset, and then even beyond that, to something greater. So this is a big thing that each of us have to go through as we work our way through recovery. And so if you look at this, we're going to start out in Romans 8:28 if you look on your sheet. And it says, "And we know that God works all things together for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose." So everything is working for your good. According to the Bible, if you love God, and you're called according to his purpose. Well, who's called according to his purpose? Well, you're called because you're here and because you're responding to God's call on your life. That you didn't decide just to get out of whatever situation you were in. You didn't just decide to get out of depression, just decide to get out of addiction. You didn't just decide to get out of a toxic environment. You were there because your mind and your emotions and your heart were keeping you there. And so to come out of that is because you heard a call. Something inside of you was saying, hey, get out of this. It's time to move on to something else. Get out of this. Well, that voice that you were hearing, that prompting that you were getting, it didn't just come out of yourself. That's actually God calling you out. So you are one of the called. You're somebody that was going through things and God said, it's time for us to do something new. And he calls you out of that. And so we know that he loves you. We know that he's called you, and so according to this verse, everything is working together for your good. The old things, the current things, the future things of your life all have one thing in common. They are working towards your good. Maybe you can think of some bad situations that you've been through, and you say, do you know what? I went through that, but I can see where it's good now. I'm going to share one with you of my own experience. My wife and I used to own furniture stores. And we had a couple of furniture stores, and we had a big warehouse, lots of people working for us, making lots of money, and we were able to travel and vacation all the time, pretty much do whatever we wanted to do. And yeah, there was some work behind it and all those things, but it was really amazing. At one point, we moved to another state, and we moved from Oregon to Texas to start a church. And when we did that, we came and were working in the church, and our furniture store, we moved it, we sold it there, we moved it to Texas, opened up a new one, and a huge giant furniture store opened up just down the street from us, like 100 times bigger than this. If you've ever been to Costco, if you have something like that, a large place, bigger than that. We're talking like a, bigger than Walmart type of furniture store, huge building. They had a playground in there, they had a restaurant in there, they had all the furniture. And they started marketing to the community, spending millions of dollars on marketing. They were having celebrities come in and all types of things, throwing big, huge parties for the community. And all of a sudden, our sales just dropped. We couldn't get any traction anymore. So that store ended up closing. Now, that's a bad thing. Our income went away. We faced all kinds of struggle because of that. And so that's a bad thing in our life as far as we could see and tell. But according to this verse, because we're loved by God and we're called according to his purpose, he's working all things for our good. All things, which would include the things that we interpreted as bad things, including us having to close down our furniture store and losing our job and our income and our business. So how did it work out for good? Well, in the moment, it's almost always impossible to tell. Like, all I know is this feels terrible. I have no idea what good is coming out of this. So most of the time, we have to look back in hindsight and see where we felt like there was a win in that. And I can tell you now, looking back, that the big benefits of closing that store is that we wound up adopting a beautiful little girl because we had more time on our hands. Somebody called us and said, hey, I'm having a baby. Would you consider adopting? somebody that we had known in the past and they were going through a struggle. If we had still had our furniture store and we were still doing all the hours it took to run that, and we were going through all those different things, we probably would have said no, almost for sure. But we said yes because we didn't have a furniture store. We didn't have a lot of money, but we did have a little bit more time than we used to have. And we prayed about it and felt like God said, yeah, adopt this girl. And she has been an incredible, incredible blessing to our life. And one of my greatest joys is to be her dad. Easily one of my greatest joys in life is just to wake up every day and to be her dad. And the only reason that happened, that made that possible, was God first taking away the furniture store, which I thought was so important to me. And I would never trade, I'd never trade her back to get my furniture stores. And so that's just one example of God using something in my life that I felt like was a really terrible thing. I didn't know how to pay my bills. It was a major loss for us. And God said, I'm taking this away, but I'm going to work it for your good. And he was faithful to do that. And there's some things in your life that God's doing the same. You may feel like there's something bad happening, but God is working for your good if you can just trust him. Romans 8:31-32 is the next verse, and it says, what then shall we say in response to these things? What things? Well, all the hard things. What will you say in response to the hard things? To that person that doesn't like you anymore, to that job that you lost, to maybe a health condition that you found out about, to maybe an abuse that you went through. Whatever it is, that's what it's talking about here in a sense, and that's what then shall we say in response to these things? And here's the answer. If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, remember he gave Jesus to die for us, he rose again in order to give us new life, to save us from our sins and from our bondages. It says, if God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also along with him freely give us all things? If God would give up his only son because he loves you, why would he not also give up everything else needed to help make sure that you succeed? Not always succeed at what you hoped you would succeed at, but succeed at your real purpose and your real destiny that he called you to. God's for you. Who can be against you? That's what it's talking about. Romans 8:37. No, in all of these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. In other words, we don't just win by the skin of our teeth and barely get out damaged and hurt, but we won. I'm a fighter that just ended a 10-round fight and my eye is swollen, and I'm bloodied, and I got a broken leg, and I might never be able to fight again, but I won the fight. I barely got out alive. That's not what it's talking about, but we're more than conquerors. We're more than conquerors. In other words, we can win and go beyond winning. What does that look like? Well, if you conquered a land and you were in some type of a conflict, a military conflict, which is what it's comparing to, and you were victorious and you took over that land, then to be more than a conqueror would be now to be a steward of the land. Hey, we took this over and we won the fight, and now we're going to make this a good place. We're going to bring peace here, and we're going to take what used to be maybe controlled by a tyrant, and we overcame them, and now we're going to make peace here, and we're going to help people to have a good life, and we're going to bring blessing, and we're going to make this a wonderful kingdom now that people live in. And so it's to be more than a conqueror is not just to win the fight, but it's then to create a place and a space for wholeness and healing and for God's will to be done, both in your life and the lives around you. That's what God wants you to do. Not just conquer your past demons. He wants you to be successful in creating a new and a bright future where the blessing of the Lord is in charge. Believing beyond victory. What will your identity be without your current struggle? And that's the question. If you let go of being an addict, if you let go of your identity as an addict, as a sex abuse victim, as somebody who lost a loved one due to a premature death, as somebody who maybe has spent time in jail or prison, or whatever identity. I'm somebody that holds on to, I'm a person that struggles with anxiety. I'm a person that struggles with depression. Whatever that identity is that you've held on to, first in recovery, you're looking at breaking free from that addiction, from that depression, from that anxiety, from that past record and offense that you've had. But the next thing to do is to move on from the actual identity of it. And to not only have had victory, to have conquered that aspect of your life, but now I have victory. And then beyond victory, who am I going to be now? If I'm no longer identifying myself as an alcoholic, I'm an addict that's just in recovery. No, what does God have for me in the future? Maybe I'm a mentor. Maybe I'm a teacher. Maybe I'm a songwriter. Maybe I'm a preacher. Maybe I'm a church starter. Maybe I'm an entrepreneur. I don't know what God's called you to. But He's called you to be more than someone who's overcoming your past. He's called you to be someone who is taking hold of your future. And so I would challenge you to take a couple of minutes and journal. What is that stirring up in your heart? What is that stirring up in your mind? What is God speaking to you right now? And then after that, we're going to break out into the small groups and talk through some questions around this subject. Thanks for being here. God bless.